Okay, so moving on to our penultimate presentation this afternoon. Please put your hands together and welcome Wong Ming Hao from A-Star.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure today to share with you a little bit about how A-Star is working with partners to build a bioeconomy backbone. So I'll take the next few minutes, hopefully, to share with you a bit of what Singapore is doing, what A-Star is doing, and feel free to approach me and have a chat after the session, should you have any questions. So I think we heard from the previous panel that actually building a bioeconomy-based company is not an easy endeavor. And if you think about what it takes and a lot of the history of this sector, actually, beyond just unit economics, there's actually a series of success factors that you need before things can actually translate successfully to the market. So the question we actually spend some time to ask ourselves is why the bioeconomy needs a backbone. How do we overcome the valley of death? What does industry struggle a lot with? So on the surface, many of us are striving towards having commercial products, and that would involve scaling your processes. You want success stories. You're always looking at companies that have made it. But beyond it, below the surface, actually, there's several things that needs to come together, particularly for companies that are active that want to be replacing or be able to compete with conventional processes in producing ingredients or products. And several of them I list below the surface, and that would involve things like having robustness in strains, not just high titers, reproducibility, of course, leveraging on your data, automation, lowering production costs, things like that, right? So it's a sequence of, I would call them success factors that are required for the industry to succeed. And several of them, I think we're trying to tackle within A-Star in partnership with the ecosystem in Singapore as well. So the way we think about it is, how do we enable industry-ready biomanufacturing throughout the value chain? And I think it starts really from the upstream, which is taking the research industry problem statements, having the sense of market and consumer needs, then applying the best of what synthetic biology or biotechnology offers, looking at then how do we scale up. And that scale-up process, actually, if you think about it, is quite multidisciplinary because it takes in chemical engineering, it takes in chemistry, it takes in biology. And then how do you then find the offtake agreements to then bring it to reality, right? So again, I think the whole process of navigating this value chain is quite a challenging one. It's something we acknowledge. And then we have to pick within this value chain, where does A-Star sit? And that's really, I think, what I'll try to share with you in a few slides subsequently. So I'm going to try to introduce to you a bit of A-Star. The Singapore Institute of Food and Biotech Innovation is one of the research institutes under A-Star. So A-Star is our national research entity funded under the Ministry of Trade and Industry. And in the whole Singapore ecosystem, so this is the map of Singapore that you can see. Over the course of many years, Singapore has invested quite broadly in this space, and it has culminated in a few spots that you see on this map, and that's the key nodes and hubs that we try to build up. So I listed them here. For instance, the National University of Singapore houses the NCEB, which is the National Center of Engineering Biology. So they do a lot of work in terms of the strain development, in terms of bioprocess, pathway engineering, and so on. We have Scale Up Bio towards the west of Singapore, which is focused on scale up to 10,000 liters. And if you zoom in a bit on the center, which is where I try to flesh out a bit of what A-Star is doing, I think we have heard from EDB that thank you. Hello? Yeah, okay, this is much better. So yeah, I think we have heard from EDB this morning that Singapore has some competitive structural advantages. For instance, we do have access to proprietary strain banks. We do also have a scale-up facility up to 10,000 liters. But beyond that, if you think about how do we realize the value for bioeconomy, it actually involves the proof of value in terms of how do we demonstrate the applications that bioeconomy actually promises, right? And to do that, it would involve you then trying to formulate the not just the pure ingredient, but actually how do we apply some of these ingredients in the right form factors to the right audiences, and that's when the value and the selling prices are determined. So that's why on the beyond the scale up part, I listed applications, because this is something that we cannot forget, if we want to eventually build a business case for ourselves. So how SIFBI is organized, or what's our vision, is to try to become an innovation engine driven by biosolutions, advancing health and well-being in Asia. How we try to realize this vision is through dividing our research into two strategic pillars. The first one is a bit more upstream, which is developing in partnership with others, a platform that enables value-added ingredient innovation. But beyond that, to then tap into certain advantages we have in terms of the cohorts, in terms of the validation platforms and assays that we have, to then demonstrate that actually the functional ingredients that you make using a bio-based process can actually have unique functional properties that can confer better performance and potentially then better selling prices. So I'll dive a bit into the first one first in the following slide to flesh it out a bit more. So in terms of the sustainable value-added ingredients innovation, what we have tried to build up here is a few things. On the discovery aspect, we do host one of the largest collections in the world in terms of proprietary strain. And how we use that is then to try to tap on this strain bank to then either uncover non-conventional hosts or hosts that are advantageous in producing certain classes of molecules, and also then to try to develop high throughput screening platforms to then screen for certain either hosts that can express certain molecules better, or potentially properties that are not quite able to be reproduced by conventional chemical methods. The second piece is on strain development, chassis design, or AI-driven enzyme design. This part, we do have automated biofoundry, which is part of a global biofoundry alliance. Certain classes of molecules that we work quite a bit with involves things like terpenes, as well as certain feedstocks, for instance, in partnership with Moja Bio, that is one of our partners that we have worked quite closely looking at alternative feedstock and how we can convert that to certain precursors. And then subsequently to that then is to then look at the fermentation downstream process. We all know that the downstream and fermentation process constitutes a high part of the costs. As you try to scale up, very often the SP can account for more than 50% of your cost. And that's something that we try to handle by either modeling or trying to find unit operations that make this process kind of commercially attractive. So how do we try to convene the ecosystem, translating the science to impact? I think here the message I want to send is that essentially we try to work very closely with the industry, as well as the academia, hospitals, with their access to cohorts, and then understanding the industry needs, adapting a cross-disciplinary approach, and finally that really would then help us translate. So wanted to give a few examples to flesh it out a bit more. So one example that we do quite a bit is in the bioprocess optimization and scale-up piece. Here we have built up, thankfully, to some national grants, kind of the scale-up platform that enables you to move from the shake flask level at a bench scale to a 100-liter scale, as well as the associated downstream process. And then beyond that, if you are able to then prove, at least at a 100-liter scale, that is a viable process, to then explore a 10,000-liter facility within Singapore, right? So I think the point here is locally we have been trying to translate, and at least in the infrastructure piece, build up the capability and capacity to handle things from shake flask to 10,000 liters, and this is available as a service to companies that might find this attractive. So some lighthouse examples I would call out that we have experienced and have had the privilege to work with. For instance, on the bioactive space, we have helped the company to formulate a natural two-step enzymatic process to convert natural feedstocks into a bioactive. And this was licensed as a specialty cosmetic ingredient. We have also worked with end-to-end fungal process for a Japanese MNC and have translated it into the company's fermenters at 100 meter cube capacity. On the startup space, we have worked with companies like Nourish, which is Australian, AO Bio, which is Estonian, Allozymes, which is local. And I think there we try to help them by developing processes, by looking at their processes and trying to lower cost, either in terms of DSP optimization or in terms of improving their fermentation titers. So I hope this gives you a bit of a flavor of how A-Star, in partnership with the ecosystem, tries to work with not just the big companies, which is the multinationals, but we also try to enable some of the smaller startups, because I believe, at least in this sector, there's a lot of interesting innovation that is happening, frontier science, that is happening in the startup space as well. And so we try to be quite flexible in the way that we work with several of these companies, and we are quite flexible when it comes to either the IP arrangement or the kind of in-kind support that we provide. And the government also, I think you've heard this morning from EDB, has been very supportive in this front as well. Right. So this is my second last slide. I just want to say that A-Star, we try to enable industry-ready biomanufacturing to advance Singapore's bioeconomy and beyond. There are a few strategic drivers that we have. I think we recognize that bioeconomy, synthetic biology, has had its own history. I think the difference this time is, if you look at the technology advancements, there have been some interesting advancements like CRISPR, like the emergence of AI, robotics, the convergence of robotics and nanotechnology or microtechnology that has enabled the DBTL cycle to really be accelerated. So there are a few technological step changes that makes this space quite interesting at advancing for us. In terms of the industry and the regulatory piece, I think we also see, and we have heard this morning, EDB calling out some examples, that there's a regulatory push and more signs of industry uptake, right? So if you ask yourselves whether now is the time to move towards a bio-based approach, I think there are a few emerging signals that gives us some confidence that it's worth a bet, or at least a serious look at, right? And that's what's driving us to look at this space in a realistic but in a serious way. So wanted to leave you some thoughts. What A-Star, in partnership with our ecosystem, enables is really industry-ready biomanufacturing capabilities, co-development of new assets. We do try to help de-risk scale-up pathways, and we hope that in this time of politics and tariffs that go up and down before you can say yes or no, we hope that Singapore does provide a neutral launchpad for regional deployment. So that's what I hope to leave you with. Do visit us at our booth to find out how we can support your bioeconomy journey, and I wish that you have a fruitful conference. Thanks very much.